What's up, guys? Welcome, episode 9 of the Heat Chat podcast. And once again, a lot of stuff to talk about. Some injuries. I don't know how these injuries keep on coming up, but they're horrible. NBA finals are starting to wind down. So let's get into that a little bit. Heat win game 3. Jimmy Butler goes off, 40-point triple-double. I think he's like some sort of record for the Heat. Eric Spoelstra, I think, is like 7th all-time. I said it before and I'll say it again. Heat have been a dark horse from the beginning, and then they slowly to make it seem like they weren't a dark horse from the beginning. They're the fucking favorite. And I still feel like the Heat can and will win this game. What about you?
You think the Heat can win the series?
He can definitely win the series.
Okay, after LeBron, you can tell LeBron's mad after that game. His team played terrible. Anthony Davis played terrible, got into foul trouble early. I think the Lakers are winning 2 games in a row and just ending the series. LeBron is hungry. Davis is hungry. Their whole team is hungry. I think that this is just done. The Heat are done for, man. I think Lakers are winning in 5.
But here's the thing. The fact that the Heat managed to do that to the Lakers without Goran Dragic and Bam Adebayo, that says a lot about how well coached this team is. They just
absolutely
outcoached them, in my opinion. They outcoached them, and I feel like they will continue to outcoach them to win this series. And I'll extend it to 7. I think this series is going to go to a game 7. There's no way the Heat goes out like that. There's no way. And then some other news around the league. Doc Rivers very quickly is over there. 76ers, Philly. Do you see this as any sort of upside? I feel like Philly will do better. I feel like Philly could, but I don't see Philly doing anything else in the playoffs than what they were doing before.
I think they'll have the same kind of regular season record. I mean, that's not going to change too much, but I mean, still probably going to get beat in the playoffs by first round, second round team.
Yeah, no doubt. And then last thing before we get to the NFL, the Pacers look like they might be in trouble. They fired their head. Victor Oladipo might want out. Miles Turner might want out as well. I mean, it's looking like trouble. And if Victor Oladipo does, in fact, request for a trade and go out, I have no idea where he could end up. Same thing with Miles Turner. So I think it's time. Pacers trade those guys away, because the fact that they managed to get those guys back and they couldn't do anything. They couldn't do anything against the Heat. They look defenseless against the Heat. They just couldn't find an answer for them. So I feel like, especially one of these guys just not wanting to be there anymore, I feel like it's time Pacers blow it up, start rebuilding again, because y'all haven't really been all that great since PG left. What about you?
Really, that's a good idea, but I mean, you see, they kind of performed in the playoffs above everyone's expectations. I mean, that guy Warren or whatever, what's his name? TJ Warren.
TJ Warren was a bubble god, but when it came to the playoffs, he kind of just he was shut down by Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, if they're trying to leave, get what you can for him now. Go in a rebuild stage, because you have a competitive. The league's too competitive for that team to succeed right now.
But yeah, doesn't seem like there's any more news about that. So let's hop straight into the NFL. Let's start off with Thursday Night Football, a game I thought was going to be a barn burner. It was actually pretty entertaining, to be honest. Like, Broncos Jets kind of went back at it. Sam Darnold had that good run. It doesn't look like Sam Darnold is going to be playing this week. He is battling a shoulder injury. He managed to come back and play throughout that game, but it seems like they're going to rest him this week. Jets play dirty. I'm going to just say this straight out there. The Jets played like a bunch of fucking bums, and they played dirty while doing it. They had that dirty hit to Noah Fant that might take him out for a couple of weeks. That's my tight end that you took out, you dumb fucking bastards. But yeah, Broncos won like we expected them to. Chargers, Bucks. That was a really good game. Chargers were really beating up on the Bucks, and then Brady came back. I did see that Brady threw another pick 6. Stat came out. That is Brady's 4th pick 6 in his last 6 games played. That's not a good look. That is not Brady. I don't know. I don't think.
But he came back and won. He came back and won.
He came back and won. Gave him that.
Throwing 5 touchdowns, so that was a pretty good performance.
5 touchdowns to 5 different receivers. But Bucks are really banged up. I don't think they'll be getting Leonard Fournette back this week, because they do have a short break. They have a Thursday night game this week coming up. We'll talk about that later. Mike Evans also a little bit banged up. Didn't participate in practice yesterday. Neither did Chris Godwin. So, I mean, Bucks might be having to go through some Philly type of wide receiver problems against Bears secondary that isn't bad. This Bears secondary is not something to play around with. Vikings, Texans. Vikings-Texans, I thought was going to be a good game. The Vikings ran away with it at the end. That was Bill O'Brien's last game as the Texans head coach and as the general manager. Texans finally fired him. Now, I don't know what that means as we're talking about what the certain moves, because if you remember from last week, I said that Bill O'Brien was very vocal about wanting to bring in Earl Thomas. That meeting got canceled because of COVID. They haven't really made any statements about rescheduling it. So I'm hoping, I'm praying that one of the reasons they ended up firing him, one, Texans are 0-4 right now. Two, maybe they didn't like the fact that he was going to bring in Earl Thomas. He didn't like what it was going to do for them. But hell, who knows? Maybe as I'm saying this, I'll get a notification on my phone saying that the Texans have just signed Earl Thomas. But I don't know how that's going to go. There really hasn't been any progression. It seems like it's really been a stalemate. But yeah, good on the Texans for finally firing Bill O'Brien.
One off season too late to fire Bill O'Brien.
One off season way too late because it's almost like I feel like Deshaun Watson would be playing so much better right now and be looking so much better if he had like an all-pro receiver. I don't know. It's a crazy thought.
Or any wide receiver one that can catch
that isn't injury prone. And then Eagles, 49ers shocked everyone else that this game was won by the Eagles, but the 49ers team is pretty banged up. Nick Mullins had like 3 turnovers. Eagles defense finally played good. Carson Wentz threw another interception. That is 7 on the season. He's already had, I believe, almost as much or more than he had the entirety of last season in these first 4 weeks. But I was saying, they need to play Jalen Hurts. But even looking back at some of the stuff Jalen Hurts has been doing, I don't even think that's even a good, not even that good of a backup. So they might have to roll with Carson Wentz. If Carson Wentz can at least have a game without an interception, he'll be good. You don't want him to turn into Daniel Jones, because I don't know if anyone knows this or if you ever looked it up or anything. But Daniel Jones, throughout his entire career as a Giants starter, has only had one game where he hasn't turned the ball over, interception or fumble. He's only had one game in his career. That's not good. But Eagles pull up the upset over there in San Francisco. Chiefs, Pats. Looked like it was about to be just a defensive heavy game, and then the Chiefs became the Chiefs. They scored more points. Brian Hoyer is a fucking bum. Bum o'clock. Studham, bum.
Studham didn't do too bad. I mean, he threw it deep to get out of a third down situation and got picked. But
Chiefs. I don't think it doesn't really seem like there's going to be a team to beat the Chiefs, especially after they beat the Ravens. I'm like, who's going to beat the Chiefs? I mean, the only people I see beating the Chiefs is maybe Chargers in a divisional game, and same thing with the Raiders, who they play this week. And then Atlanta, Green Bay. That game could have ended up possibly being Dan Quinn's final game as an Atlanta Falcon. What do you see? Do you see them firing him this week?
I think the Falcons fans are hoping that he gets fired. I mean, having this good of an offense, probably one of the best offenses in the league. The defense isn't there, but you gotta make some type of move, because that team is too good to be. I mean, I know they have a really good division, but you got to do something.
Gurley looked really good. Got 2 touchdowns. They once again they need to use him in the receiving attack. I'm gonna start him this week. He's not going to be on my stardom statements, but for me personally, I'm going to start him this week just because I like the matchup, and he managed to get 2 touchdowns last night, whether that's garbage time touchdowns, and they just managed to drive down the field. Also, Calvin Ridley, horrible game. 5 or 6 targets, 0 receptions. Granted, he dropped the touchdown pass, but still, 0 fantasy. That's never good. So all of that combined, let's get into our offensive and defensive player of the weeks. Why don't you start off?
My offensive player of the week was Joe Mixon. I hope you guys listened last week. 180 yards combined. 150.
You didn't even listen to yourself, bro. You didn't even listen to yourself.
Okay, I will admit, I got scared at the end. I took him out. I put Jonathan Taylor in. He drops 42 on me. But I did say in the podcast to start him as my running back, so at least that's all that matters. He had 3 touchdowns, 150 yards on the ground, 30 yards through the air. Great week by Mixon. I hope he keeps it up against the Ravens.
Yeah, no doubt. I have Mixon there as my offense. I mean, you said it best. You can't put up 42 points and not be the offensive player of the week unless it's like week 2, for example. Aaron Jones put up 45. He didn't get offensive player of the week. Why? Because Dak had that comeback. But and then defensive player of the week, I'm gonna give this one to Bradley Chubb. Broncos, Jets. Like I said, it wasn't really all that great of a game. I mean, high scoring for a Jets game if we're talking about it. But Chubb, 2.5 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss. He really stepped in for Von Miller there, and he had a great game. What about you?
Yeah, I'll go with Bradley Chubb too, with the 2.5 sacks, a lot of tackles. Good game. I mean, against the Jets, everyone's gonna have a good game. They're just a sorry team. Bradley
No
Chubb.
doubt. A couple of things before we get into our hits and misses. Titans Bills is now looking like it's about to be in jeopardy. Titans had their first day without any positive tests all week. Not all week, but in a little bit yesterday. So that's really good. For that game, though, I don't know if they're going to postpone it or if they're going to put that one on. I mean, I know they can't put them on bye 2 weeks in a row. Maybe they could. I don't know how that's going to plan out, but I'm hoping they end up playing that. Chubb, Eckler, another big running backs, big running backs, especially for fantasy, injured. I think Eckler is bound to miss at least a month. Chubb out for, I think the estimated time is 6 to 8 weeks. It's bad. They've both been placed on IR. And then I want to quickly talk about the Cowboys front office. Now, I don't want to just sit there and talk about my team, but when you give up 49 points to the Browns, it's a bad look. You have the worst defense you have had in your entire franchise's history. Honestly, this is the worst defense the Cowboys have ever had. And it's not because of the players. It's because of the lack of players. We're playing guys from the practice squad. We're playing guys who are third string. We're still starting Darian Thompson for some fucking reason. We make ourselves look like idiots for fucking releasing Ha-Ha. You got 2 guys out there, Earl and Damon Harrison. Damon Harrison literally comes on Twitter and says, I want to be in Dallas. Jerry Jones comes on the fucking radio, says, hey, I'm willing to make moves. But then you got your fucking GM and your coach saying, we like the guys that we have. Now, are guys going to be coming off of IR this week? Yeah. You got Chidobe, you got Anthony Brown, you got some guys coming off of IR this week. That's good. That's not good enough because those guys are not going to help our problems at safety. They're not going to help our problems at linebacker. We cannot tackle. We look like fucking lifeless corpse out there. We have the worst ranked defensive interior lineman in Tristan Hill starting. Why not start Neville Gallimore? Why not bring in Snacks for a fucking workout? You got Seattle bringing them in for a fucking workout. You're letting guys who are saying over and over again, come into Dallas, and yet you're just like, nah. You don't want to bring in Earl Thomas because you think he's going to be a locker room cancer, but you're going to fucking bring in Greg Hardy? What the fuck is wrong with you? Get your fucking shit together. I am not saying this just because I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm saying that you guys are playing in the worst division. If y'all were playing in the AFC, y'all would have no chance of making the playoffs. The only reason the Eagles are leading the division is because they tied against the Bungles. They tied against the fucking Bungles. You have a chance to win the division. You have the worst secondary in the league, and you still have a chance to win the division. Do something. Take care of that. Because if you sign a guy like Earl or even Damon, someone to help our fucking interior, because I know you probably don't want to sign Damon Harrison because you don't want to drive away Gerald McCoy because you already know Gerald McCoy is coming back next year. We just released him due to cap. Sign Earl. What's the fucking risk in it? Your defense fucking sucks. Oh, you have locker room cancer in? Oh, shit. Because you got your own fucking players calling your defense soft. DeMarcus Lawrence, first thing he said, first question, he said this defense is soft. This defense is playing like a bunch of idiots. Jalen Smith was walking on the field during that Odell rushing touchdown. There are major problems. The Cowboys are not a good team. The Cowboys are not a good team right now. There are major problems. And maybe it could be coaching, yes. But you got to start at somewhere. You got to bring in motherfuckers in. If your guys aren't working, you bring in guys. That's how you fucking win. Flashback to when we picked up Amari. Seriously.
All right, let's go, guys. If you can't tell, Brett is a little bit mad at the Cowboys here. But let's go ahead and move on from the Cowboys. It's okay, Brett. We'll get past it.
It's bullshit. But hits and misses. Let's go ahead. Who'd you hit on?
Last week I hit on all of my starters. I did pretty good last week on the guys I said to start. I said to start Drew Brees. He got 15. You might not say that's a hit for a quarterback, but it's average numbers. It's not that bad. It's not like he did bad. I hit on Joe Mixon, obviously, with the 42 points. Keenan Allen, he got 14 points. I expected a little bit more, but that's still pretty good numbers for a receiver, starting him in your flex or something like that. And then I started Mark Andrews versus the Redskins, and he put up 20 points.
My hits for the week. I said Minshew, start him. He put up 21, pretty good week. Devontae Parker, I said he was bound to have a breakout. He didn't really break out, but he showed I'm pretty sure 21 points. Rodrigo Blankenship, I said he's my dude. I put him in my lineup, 15 points. He had a great game. And then for my sits that ended up hitting, I said sit Edelman. He's a bum. Guess what? He put up bum numbers. Nick Folk, he's a bum. Guess what? Put up bum numbers. Miami, pretty obvious. You knew they weren't going to have good numbers against Russell Wilson. And then my misses, I said I'm going to put Kamara as a miss, not because he did bad. It's just because I had him as my stud of the week because he had a good matchup and he just didn't put up stud of the week numbers. So that's why I put him in my sit, put him in my misses. Stafford, I said sit him. Sorry, he had 21. I said sit Robinson. No, I said start Robinson. He had 14. I'll consider that a miss. I thought he was going to do good. From the standards that I held him up to, I'll consider that a miss. I said sit Antonio Gibson. Both of us did. He put up good numbers against a really good defense.
The Ravens.
22 against the Ravens. And then tight ends. Both of my tight ends just got injured. Cook was injured that game. It seems like he might come back. And then they went ahead and put Goddard on IR, which there was no reports that they were going to put Goddard on IR. They just threw him up there. So, yeah. Pretty much bare minimum, straight down the middle. It was even for my hits and misses.
For my misses, I had I said to sit Antonio Gibson, and I missed on Hayden Hurst. I said to sit him, and he put up 10. I also said to sit Edelman, and he put up 6 points. So we both said to sit Edelman against the Chiefs. He does terrible against the Chiefs every time he plays them. Dropped an easy screen pass for a pick six, which basically ended the game. But we're not going to talk about that. And for my stud last week, I had Ezekiel Elliott versus the Browns. Obviously, wasn't the stud of the week, and I missed on that.
Yeah. But now let's get into this week's start and sits. Of course, I always start off with the stud. I'm going to say my stud. He's been playing great. Joey has his doubts about him because he thinks he's injury prone. He's been playing great. He's been looking like he's about to fucking stride into his prime for the next couple of years. Dalvin Cook, stud of the week. Minnesota has a really good matchup against Seattle. I feel like, especially with how good of a receiving threat Dalvin Cook can be, I don't see Seattle stopping Dalvin. And I don't know exactly what the status on Jamal Adams is, but if Jamal Adams isn't there, that's another guy that's not there to stop the run. So yeah, I expect Dalvin Cook to go off this week.
All right, for my stud, I'm going with kind of an obvious one. I'm going with Lamar Jackson. He's finally starting to pick it up a little bit. Against the Bengals last year, we all know that famous run that he had last year. He seems to always mix up the Bengals when he plays them. Easy matchup. He's going to be getting on the ground a lot because they won't have to throw too much, I don't imagine. But even if the Bengals put up a little bit of a fight, he's still going to get yards through the air or on the ground. It doesn't matter which way the game goes. Lamar Jackson's going to put up points, and I say he's putting up at least 35 this week and getting the start of the week.
QB, my start, just regular start. Start Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater's been looking good, and he plays Atlanta. Any guy who plays Atlanta, put him in your lineup. He's primed to have it, unless Atlanta just shows up. I believe they're out with Darqueze Dennard. Not Darqueze Dennard, or maybe it was either that or whoever their safety is. I'm pretty sure it's Devontae KZ. I'm pretty sure that's his name is. He suffered an Achilles tear last night. He's out. Darqueze Dennard, I believe, was placed on IR last week. And AJ Terrell, I don't know if he's going to be recovering from COVID anytime soon. That secondary is
god awful. Yeah,
is god awful. And they might not even have Keanu Neal, which I see Keanu Neal as more of a big tackler guy, because he's one of the hardest hitters in the league. But yeah, that secondary is horrible. And then my sit of the week, he had a great week against my Cowboys. But yeah, this Indiana defense is not something to mess around with. They're looking like one of the best defenses in the league right now. I'm sitting Baker Mayfield against Indiana.
All right, I'm actually going with Teddy Bridgewater as my start. He's been putting up some pretty underrated numbers. No one's really talking about him. He is even a waiver wire pickup in most. So he could go for either one of those. Against Atlanta, banged up secondary, like you said. As my sit, I'm going with Smoking Joe Burrow. He's been going off for some people lately. I'm sure his owners are happy with him. Cincinnati's been throwing the ball a lot. I mean, didn't he have 60 attempts 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
passing attempts.
I think he had 62 attempts against the Browns. It was crazy.
Yeah, but I'm sitting him against the stacked Ravens secondary and D line. That O line in Cincinnati is terrible. He's gonna get pressure all
Mm.
game. It's gonna be tough for him to put up over probably 15.
Running backs this week. It looks like Kenyon Drake is going to be out on injury. He did leave the game early with an injury,
Who
and I got
cares? That guy sucks.
either way. He hasn't been getting into the end zone since week one. And even though he's a bust, there's been a guy who's been taking away his touches, and it's Chase Edmonds. He's my start of the week. Cardinals, they face up against the Jets. If Chase Edmonds is a running back one and they're running him 100% of the time, Edmonds, we saw what happened last year when he was a running back one. Kenyon Drake was injured. Edmonds came in and put up like 30, 35. So, yeah, definitely Edmonds. He could be start of the week. He could break out or he could just get shut down. But I see Edmonds as a
I
very
hope he
safe.
takes over that role over Kenyon Drake. Hopefully, he has a good game this week so that the Cardinals coach is going to see that he's
Yeah,
starting the wrong
because
guy.
even in fantasy leagues, you can't even trade Kenyon Drake because he has zero value right now. He has no
Yeah,
value.
yeah.
He
No
just
one
has no
wants him.
value. He was a first, second round projected. It's like, oh yeah, guys, pick this guy up. If he falls to the third, it's gonna be. And I was kind of hoping he would fall to the third because I'd be like, oh, that's a pretty good pickup. Thank God, because I ended up picking up Aaron Jones over him. And wait, no, I can't even say that because Kenyon Drake was picked in the first round. So, yeah, just really disappointing. And then my sit, Myles Gaskin, Miami running back. A lot of people have been saying he's very underrated. He could put up some good weeks. This week he plays up against San Francisco. My boy Miles Sanders just put up a 9 against San Francisco. Once again, that Eagles O line is bad. So, but I mean, I don't see Miami's O line being any different. Yeah, Myles Gaskin, a sit this week against San Francisco.
All right. Well, for my running backs, I'm going with start David Johnson against Jacksonville. We saw what Mixon did to Jacksonville, and you could even argue that Houston has a better running game than the Bengals. I mean, they have a better O line. They give Johnson the ball a lot. He's been getting over 15 attempts every game, so I think he's a good play this week versus Jacksonville. I trust him a lot. I'm starting him this week in my flex, and for my sit, I'm going with Miles Sanders against Pittsburgh. If he does what he did last game against a good defense, he's gonna probably do it again. I mean, it's just that team is sus. Pittsburgh's got a
Yeah.
great
I mean,
defense.
I was strongly considering putting Miles Sanders in there, but the only reason I won't do that is because he is the bell cow of that team. He is the workhorse of that team. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't like putting in workhorses at my sits because if you sit a running back, you're like, oh, then he's not going to put up more than like 10. Well, workhorses have the potential to put up either their floor is very low. They could put up like 9, or they could have a couple of big plays with their wide receivers and then give it to their workhorse, and he has like 20. So that's really that's the type of guy that Miles Sanders will be,
Yeah.
especially when these tougher matchups, because he's got Pittsburgh and then Baltimore next week. But we saw how good Gibson did against Baltimore. So I mean, that's why I don't really like sitting Sanders in any of those matchups. But I don't know. I might with some of the guys, some of the better matchups. And I did consider putting in Todd Gurley because he's got a really good matchup, especially because he got 2 touchdowns against Green Bay. So there's a lot of choices for me to make personally. And then wide receivers, who do you got?
I'm starting Darius Slayton versus Dallas. We saw this guy put up some big games last year. This could be the one where he does it. I mean, arguably the worst or second worst secondary in the league.
The worst.
Yeah, the worst defense in the league. Slayton, he's a deep ball threat. If Jones can get some time in the pocket and air it out to him, I mean, he's got some wheels. He can catch it downfield. We saw him put up some big games last year. He's on and off player, but this is the one week where if you're in a deeper league and you need someone to play in your flex, this is the guy right here. I think he's going to have a good week. And I'm going to actually sit Terry McLaurin versus the Los Angeles Rams. He's going to have Ramsey on him. He's the focus of that offense right now. He's been putting up some great numbers, though, but Rams have a pretty good defense this year, and I don't see him doing that well.
At my wide receiver start Justin Jefferson. He's had back-to-back 100-plus yard games. He would have had about 20 last game, but he didn't get a touchdown. But 104 last week, I believe, and then the week before that, everyone knows he had a crazy game. I believe, the best ranking wide receiver that week. But yeah, he plays against Seattle. Seattle, probably the second or third worst secondary in the league. Uh, it seems like Cousins is really liking him. I feel like he'll end up having a better week than Thielen just because I feel like Thielen, I would say they have about the same week when it comes to touchdowns and how many yards they get. But I don't know. When it comes to obvious, you obviously got to start Thielen almost every week because you invest him in him high. But if Justin Jefferson is still on the waiver wire, if he is, pick him up right now, as soon as you can, because this kid is. I mean, he's been going off. He really has been, and Cousins is loving him. And then I got Tyler Boyd as my sit of the week against Baltimore. I feel like this is if there's any guy on this offense that's going to be working, it's going to be Joe Mixon. Because it seems like he found his groove last game, against a poor defense, yes, but it seems like he found his groove last week. Tyler Boyd seems to be the number one wide receiver over there for Joe Burrow, but Baltimore's secondary is incredible. They have a great secondary. The only time I've seen them basically lay on their backs is against Kansas City. And even then, they gave up like 21 points to Terry McLaurin last week, but I don't feel like he'll be airing the ball out much. I see this as a low scoring game for Cincinnati. And then my tight ends, I'm going with a homer. Dalton Schultz, New York Giants. I feel like this is a great matchup for him. Blake Jarwin always eats up against the Giants. Sadly, he's out for the year. But whenever we did play them, our tight ends ate up the Giants. That's just how it's always been. Jason Witten, I remember he had that one-handed catch last year, and Blake Jarwin had like 105 receiving yards against them. Dalton Schultz right now is, I believe, the 6th or 9th, something like that, ranked tight end for fantasy right now. Prescott's loving him. He's been getting a lot of targets, and I love it. If there's any receivers on this offense that I feel like will be a safe start, besides, of course, the obvious ones in Coop, and hell, even CeeDee Lamb is looking like he's about to take over as a wide receiver too. Hell, I think he already has taken over as a wide receiver too. CeeDee's looking great. I mean, he's been looking fantastic. And so is Dalton Schultz. So I got him as my start. And then my sit, Austin Hooper this week versus Indiana. He got into the end zone last week against Dallas, but I don't see this Browns offense playing nearly nowhere at all as good as they played last week because, like I said earlier, this Indiana defense is not something to mess around with.
He's always questionable. He's always, he either gets 10 targets or no targets. I mean, but I think he'll have a good week versus Dallas. They let Hooper get into the end zone. And Ingram, he's a good goal line threat, too, to throw like a screen to or a drag to. So I think he'll get into the end zone at least
He's
one
a
time.
good deep threat tight end.
Noah Fant versus them. Their defense played amazing in the first half.
I will say this. Broncos are saying that they don't expect Fant to play this week. So
he's not expected to play?
I don't think he's expected to play. It's a minor ankle injury, but I'm pretty sure they might sit him just because I think Drew Lock might come back the week after this. So if he does, then Noah Fant is a must start every week just because Drew Lock loves Noah Fant.
It's his favorite target.
It seems like with these backup quarterbacks, they're not really looking to Noah Fant a lot. Fant was looking like he was about to get into the end zone in that Jets game until he took that dirty hit. But if Fant does play, I do agree with you. Sit him against New England, but I just want to throw that out.
Yeah. We'll sit him either way. If he's out, yeah, we're just letting you know.
Kicker. I got to put my boy Greg the leg up here. The Giants give up a lot of points to kickers. They did that last year and they did that this year. So if you ever need a guy to stream, always pick up the guy against the Giants. I don't know if Greg is going to be on the waiver wire or if you have him or not. I know they're not in the waiver wire in our league, but if he is, pick him up. He's a safe streaming option. But if you really need a guy to stream and a reliable guy, like I said, I've been saying this before, pick up Rodrigo Blankenship. He put up 13 for me last week. If he's still on the waiver and no one wants to pick him up because he's a safe bet every single week. And then at my sit, I got Hopkins for the Washington football team. Hopkins is the type of guy that will not really have all that great games. He'll have a couple of highlight games of the year, but I don't see this Washington offense driving down the field as much. I see a lot of punts, some interceptions from Dwayne Haskins. Wouldn't be surprised if this is the game that Alex Smith comes in. If Alex Smith does come in, it could be a different story. But, yeah, I don't expect Hopkins to do that great against Los Angeles.
All right, for my kicker, I got the number one kicker, Randy Bullock versus Baltimore. I think that Cincinnati's gonna get stopped in the red zone a lot if they even have a couple field goal attempts at least, and maybe a few extra point attempts. And somehow he's the number one kicker right now. That doesn't really make sense to me, but he's been putting up numbers. So if he is on the waiver wire, you might want to pick him up. And for my sit, I'm going with Young Hoku versus Carolina.
I think he's on IR.
He's on IR. Did he play last night?
Be. No, he didn't.
He didn't play last night. Okay, well, my bad on that one.
Just
I
sit the
mean,
Atlanta kicker, though. I don't know what his
kicker,
name is,
yeah.
but yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Atlanta
Sit the
kicker
Atlanta kicker.
/ Young Hoku because I think they're going to score a lot on the Carolina.
And then defensive special teams. I'm not going to go with the obvious one. You probably are, but I'm going to go with Rams. Rams had a good week. I've been good picking my defenses. I've been streaming defenses. I made that decision at the beginning of the year. I'm not going to draft the defense. I'm going to stream my guys just based off of matchups, and I've been doing pretty good. Colts, 26. Rams last week, put up 11. If I can get my defense to put up at least 8 every week, I'm fine with that. That's enough to push me through. And this week, I feel like the Rams will be able to force a couple of touchdowns, especially with a turnover happy Dwayne Haskins. Rams are should be slotted to at least put up 10, I feel like. And then Raiders this week, sit them against Kansas City. Always sit a defense against Kansas City. I mean, you just can't stop that offense. No matter how good you might play against them in the first half, like the Pats did, they ended up giving up points in the final. And the gist of it, just don't ever start defenses against Kansas City.
All right, I'm going with the Cardinals versus the Jets with your streaming strategy. I'm going to try to get them this week and stream them. I'm dropping the Saints defense. They've been very disappointing for me. I actually drafted them in my draft. So I'm going to start them versus the Jets. I mean, Sam Darnold had a pretty good game last week, but we'll see how long that lasts. And I'll go Tennessee versus Buffalo as my sit. Buffalo's been putting up really good numbers. That game should be really good, though.
And then before we get into our game days, let's go into waiver wires. Running backs. Austin Eckler is out for at least a month. Pick up Joshua Kelly.
Please pick up Josh Kelly.
Kelly.
He's gonna win you some games.
He has been getting a lot of goal line snaps. Now, he has had turnover problems. He has had a fumble in the past 2 weeks, I believe. But still, if you really need a running back, like I know there's a guy in our league, he just lost Nick Chubb for 6 weeks. And the only other running backs that he's got that's healthy is James Robinson. So a guy like him would desperately need Kelly. I know there's got to be teams out there who would love to have this guy at least in your flex, but hell, I would start this guy running back too, just because of the production he's going to end up seeing. What about you? You have Josh Kelly as well?
I have Josh Kelly. Yeah, please pick him up. I mean, I've been high on this guy since the beginning of this podcast. You've heard me talk about him before. He's taking goal line snaps from Eckler. I think even have this guy even if Eckler was in as a bench guy. If you're in a deeper league, this guy's gonna be good.
Yeah, and then at wide receiver, I got Tim Patrick. He is owned in 0.4% of leagues. It seems like until Drew, this guy seems to be the number one target, of course, besides Judy. Judy had that insane catch against the Jets. He had that insane catch where he basically mossed. He mossed somebody. But Tim Patrick seems to be liked by Brett Rippon, if that's even the guy they're going to continue to go with. But yeah, I like Tim Patrick this week, no doubt. Especially as a wide receiver pickup.
I'll go with Scotty Miller, man. This guy's been impressive. He put up 21 points, I believe, last week. He seems to be one of Brady's favorite targets on that team.
And I mean, loves his wide receivers, man.
Yeah, with his injury-prone teammates. I mean, Mike Evans going down. Godwin, he's expected to come back, but we don't know yet. I think Scotty Miller.
Evans is the guy who's expected to come back, not Godwin. Godwin's expected to be out for a couple more weeks.
Okay, yeah. Evans is expected to come back, but we're not sure. So that leaves Scotty Miller if they're both out. That leaves Scotty Miller as I believe, wide receiver 1, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you want Brady.
If you want to take the risk at tight end, if you like their matchup enough, pick up Gronk because O.J. Howard tore his Achilles during yesterday's game. So no one's taking snaps away from Gronk. So I think if there's any time for Gronk to at least get into the end zone, get you about 10, 11 points if you really do need that in like a deeper league or hell in any league, I'll take 11 points for my tight end because that's just barely enough, at least a touchdown. But yeah, that wide receiver core is starting to go down. And then at QB, you need a good streaming option if he's on the waiver wire. He's 38.3% owned, so he might not be for you. But Daniel Jones, any guy who's on the waiver wire that plays Dallas, pick him up. Because you got guys like Darius Slayton, Evan Ingram, Golden Tate. You got a bunch of guys you could break out. And Daniel Jones is going to be the one throwing him the ball. Now, once again, like I said, there's only been one game in his entire career as a starter where he hasn't thrown an interception. So it would really say something if he throws an interception against this fucking secondary. But if we have Chidobe back, if we have Anthony Brown back, that could be a whole different story. If we somehow manage to get up off our asses and sign Earl, that could be a different story. But I like Daniel Jones this week. He's definitely a great pickup.
All right. Well, I went with Derek Carr. He's been putting up pretty consistent numbers, and
He's
he's
playing
owned in like
great. He's playing
he's
great.
yeah he's owned in less than 5% of leagues, I believe, when I checked it this morning.
Mm.
Like this guy's been putting up consistent numbers, and if you're getting hurt by injuries at QB somehow in a deep league, pick this guy up. He's not bad at all. He's got good options around the field that he likes. He's getting comfortable with his new team. I mean, he's been on the team, but he's getting comfortable with his new younger receivers and Josh Jacobs. He's been putting up consistent numbers, like 20 points, 19 points a week. He's a pretty good pickup in deeper leagues.
Yeah, no doubt. Then let's get to the games. Tampa, Chicago, Thursday night. Even though they're going to be very empty-handed, I feel like this will end up being a close game because they managed to fight back and forth with the Chargers. But I got Tampa winning this. I feel like Chicago will probably have a couple of costly turnovers. Maybe if there's any guy that's going to save this game for Chicago, it's going to be David Montgomery because I feel like he's going to be if there's any guy that I would expect to at least break out for a couple of big runs against because this Tampa defense isn't the greatest, but sometimes they can stop the run, and then some weeks they just can't. So yeah, I got Tampa winning this either way.
Yeah, I'm not man enough to bet against Brady just yet, so I'll take Tampa Bay.
And then Kansas City versus Las Vegas. This is one of those games I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas City loses it. Las Vegas is playing really good. Their defense seems to be very well coordinated. I mean, that legendary coach John Gruden this is a really well coached team. But Kansas City, can't forget about them. Andy Reid, one of the best coaches in the league. Their offense is unstoppable. If their defense shows up, then I feel like all it takes is a couple of drives. They just need to stop Las Vegas a couple of times, and I feel like Kansas City will be able to at least keep at least a 7-point. I see this game being close, though, but I'm going to take Kansas City.
Yeah, if they play like they did against the Patriots, then the Raiders are probably going to win that game, but they're going to step it up probably. You can't take anyone against the Chiefs. It's the Chiefs. I'm going Chiefs.
Yeah. Colts Browns. I feel like this game's going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Colts have been playing great on defense, and Browns look like they're pretty serious this year. Their pass rush looks really good, especially Myles Garrett. But this Colts O-line is very good. They have been very good for the past couple of seasons. I see this Colts. There wasn't really a lot of good 1:00 games to choose from either way, or maybe it was a 4:00 game. I can't remember. But either way, Colts Browns. I see this being hopefully one of the best games of the week. I didn't want to just throw in Giants Cowboys because that's about the only other maybe entertaining matchup just because of how bad our secondary is. But I'd rather watch Colts Browns. Who do you got?
Dude, that's a tough one actually. I haven't thought about that game yet, but I'm going to go with the Browns actually. I liked the Browns offense last week. I like their pass rush. It's going to be tough with that Colts O-line. Phillip Rivers needs to get T.Y. Hilton more involved. He's been disappointing this year. I mean, you got to throw to T.Y. Hilton. He's your stud right there.
Yeah,
I mean, he's throwing to Pascal and stuff. Yeah.
You can't forget about T.Y. Hilton. I mean, a couple of years back, I think it was Zeke's rookie year. T.Y. Hilton led the league in receiving yards. So he's not a bad receiver. He's got wheels. He can run routes. He's just not seeing the targets that he should be. So hopefully that gets. For the sake of their offense, I'm with you on that one. T.Y. needs to be seeing a little bit more volume because they couldn't even use him well against the damn Jets. And then Seattle, Minnesota for Sunday Night Football. Once again, this could be another one of those games where Minnesota decides to show up and they decide to play really good. Minnesota, I believe. Wait, no, they're 1-3 now, right? Yeah, they're 1-3 because they beat the Texans.
Yeah.
So, Minnesota could show up and upset because, hell, the Cowboys almost beat fucking Seattle. The Cowboys almost upset Seattle a couple of weeks back. I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota pulls away with it. I got Dalvin Cook as my stud of the week, but I see Seattle. Once again, same with you with the whole Brady thing. I can't bet against Russell Wilson until Minnesota decides to. They, on paper, should have a good pass rush with Yannick Ngakoue and Daniil Hunter. I believe that. Yeah, they have Daniil Hunter. That should be a really good pass rush, and yet they haven't been playing like it. And their O-line hasn't been playing the greatest too. But yeah, I got Seattle winning this one.
I'm gonna take Seattle too. Obvious choice in my books. I don't think the Vikings stand a chance against Seattle. Seattle's just explosive offense. They're getting up there with like the Chiefs type of offense. You know what I mean? They didn't have that great of a game versus the Dolphins, surprisingly, but they'll pick it up, man. Wilson's the MVP right now, if not Josh Allen.
And then this week is Monday Night Football, Chargers versus New Orleans. I'm going to say there's an upset here. I say Chargers win this game versus the Saints.
Wow.
I think if the Chargers, I think Brian Bulaga, which is one of their tackles, I don't know if he was injured last game or not, but if he is back, injured or not, I like the Chargers O-line. I like their offense. Their offense seems to be really high powered right now. I mean, with how they played against the Bucs, I mean, Herbert's been looking great for them. Keenan Allen's been getting a lot of targets, and if New Orleans is without Marshawn Lattimore and Janoris Jenkins once again, I'd say Chargers upset here. There's a very possibility, and you can't sleep on that Chargers defense there. Even though they do not have Derwin James for the whole year, once again, their defense is still really good. Their pass rush is still really good. But yeah, who do you got?
I got the Saints with Michael Thomas returning, I believe, right? He's
Uh,
back this week, right?
mm-hmm.
I got the Saints, man. Mike back. I think this is they've been years though. Saints are taking this one.
Yeah, no doubt. But I feel like that game, I could see it's probably a lot safer to go with the Saints, no doubt, especially with Michael Thomas returning. But I would love to see, and I want to see, and I think the Chargers are going to pull off the upset here. But yeah, that's it for this week, guys. Hopefully, we help you out with starts and sits and everything. Like we said over and over again, pick up Joshua Kelly. He is going to be a stud for at least a month, no doubt. But yeah, thank you all for watching. See you in the next episode. Peace.